So, welcome to David Åkesson on this first episode of Journey to a Metal God.
Like you said, my name is David Åkesson, and I am the singer of the French power metal band Qantice, and I also do a lot of studio work for other producers, bands, and projects and stuff like that. A lot of backing vocals and choir stuff. I also teach vocals at an upper secondary school, and I have done so for 10 years now.
Do you have any warm-up exercises you recommend?
I do a lot of some of the terminology now. I have to just lip rolls, like I do a lot of those, and to relax and release tension around here, I do some bop 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 bop. And to figure out to even out the airflow, I do a lot of stuff like that, and to release the tension in the jaw and tongue, I do some stuff like that. And I also and I fool around with this a lot, a bit depending on how the voice feels on that particular day. But I always, for psychological reasons, I always try to finish my warm-up with, or my exercise with singing something that I really think that this is something that I do really good, to make myself feel good, and to end the exercise or the warm-up with, a good feeling.
How is your practice routine?
Well, I sing a lot at work, so I get my daily singing that way, and I do warm-ups with a lot of students every day, so it's not really something I do a lot at home. Now during summer break, I should probably practice more than I do. But so it's not really a routine, But when a show or a tour or whatever, start to come up or closing in, I try to pull myself together and just get things done.
I'm too bad at doing practice. I sit here in the studio and just sing the songs that I write and never actually practice any technique or something.
No, that's probably the worst thing.
Yeah.
You go straight into the studio and say, okay, let's sing.
Yeah.
And instead of taking like 15 minutes to just calm down and get your voice going, that's my biggest mistake, because I'm usually out in the studio at the evening when the kids fall asleep. So I say, oh God, I have like 1.5 hours. So So yeah, I should be better at that.
Yeah, it's a problem for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
How do you train to extend your register?
Well, to be honest, I think I've reached my full potential. Probably could be more, but I have from the low F2 up to the A5, the really high A, maybe a B flat on a good day. But I've tried a lot to extend more than that. So I just came to terms with that. This is, at least for now, this is my voice, and I just have to improve how I use it. So I at the moment, I don't work at extending it anymore.
And A5 is still very high, so...
Yeah, it's the The Mark Bowles A.
Yeah.
We used to call it that. Do you have the Mark Bowles A? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I do a G sharp or something in the Fear song with the Darkest Sins, but
Yeah.
I struggle with the last half step up to an A.
I had a G sharp, or I had a G sharp with Qantice, but we actually lowered that song. It was from the first album with a different singer, and you know, I can do it, but I don't really trust my ability to be able to do it many days in a row.
Yeah. Have you had any voice training?
Yes, I've had. I started singing choirs and stuff like that when I was just a small kid, and I've been doing it for all my life. And then I went to upper secondary school, or videregående, or gymnasiet, as we say in Sweden when you're about 16, something like that. Then I started to sing more for real, and I had my own voice teacher, both one at school and one outside. And then after that, I went to the Academy of Music for 5 years, studying mostly classical singing. So yeah, I've had quite a lot of vocal training. A lot of the basic stuff works the same whether you're singing classical music or jazz or metal or whatever. And most importantly, the ability to be able to hear the music inside. So I always stress that every musical training you can get, it can never be harmful.
How do you sing high notes powerfully, even with falsetto?
This is again a matter of terminology, because this is what I call falsetto. And this, what I'm about to do now, is something else. That is
head voice, maybe.
Yeah, that's like head voice or falsetto, you know, because it's always so confusing with the terminology, but or mixed voice or whatever. When we speak of metal falsetto singers, what actually happens is that you have a lot of, you don't have a lot of mass in your vocal folds. I usually demonstrate it like this: is you know, the air gets through. This is vocal. So with the less, or the you know, with the thin vocal folds, to be able to sing very high, you need to keep the same amount of air pressure as when you do the when you do with the thick vocal folds. So you don't lose the airflow. I guess I'm painting myself into a corner here. This is the famous switch. The we all have it. We all hate it, and we're better or worse at masking it. So what I usually do when you sing really high, when we go Mark Bowles high, I usually describe it as you sing with less vocal fold mass, but with an equal amount of air pressure. So if you want to go too high using the thick vocal folds, that's when you get vocal problems. And when you use less mass for the vocal folds, then it's just about EQing it up here, you know, making it sound like you're still in the thick vocal folds. So yeah, I think that might be an answer to your question.
how do you go from chest voice to head voice? And that's yeah, you talked a little about it, but
Yeah. In classical music, you call it passaggio, and basically it's that ability to mask this switch going from thick vocal folds to thin vocal folds. And the lip roll stuff that I showed earlier, this that's a very good exercise for making this a smooth transition between these two. Well, it's something that it's not like riding a bike, because you need to practice this a lot, and I can feel that this is what disappears first for me if I don't practice or do anything with my voice for a while. Then it's the first problem I get is the crack, the the voice change stuff. So that is something that you can never practice enough. There are some singers you could sometimes hear when they are doing the transition, and then there are people like Ralf Schepers and stuff like that, who it seems like it's just one voice all the way, but it's just that they are extremely good at masking this transition. They're probably not even thinking about it themselves, because it's just so even.
Yeah, same with Bruce Danielsen. You can't hear him changing.
No, not at all. Although I think he goes very high with his chest voice. Probably a bit higher than normal people, but he still keeps the ability to switch on the very top notes. It sounds to me like, if Run to the Hills and stuff like that, like he's still in the chest voice, but a thinner chest voice. It's some kind of middle ground in between. He's amazing.
When I try to sing The Trooper, my voice tends to sound like Mickey Mouse instead of that full. Full
you think we're right, little taters too? When you do, but then it's about making it sound bigger without. I usually say you should keep the same gain down here, but you change the volume and the EQ.
Yeah. How do you reach the highest notes?
By not pushing too much, because when you go very high, the vocal folds are really, really small and thin, and they don't need the same amount of air pressure as when you do harder and deeper stuff. And also not straining your stomach, like you're going to the toilet. I usually think like, Stevie Wonder. Mostly when I have students that force too much, I make them do like this, do a Stevie Wonder move just to release the tension in the stomach, because that's the normally the biggest problem. Too much tension in the stomach.
Yeah, you also get very tired very fast when you're stressed.
Yes.
Do you use falsetto or head voice when hitting the highest notes?
Yes and no, depending on the terminology. But yes, I do. I do this switch transition thing. Yes, I do.
How do you maintain your voice on the road?
3 important things: hydration, rest, and energy. So drink water, sleep, and eat. And other than that, it's to avoid the thank you for coming, this kind of after show, after party, when people come up to you and say, I love the show. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the kind of voice killer stuff you. So trying to be nice to people and talk with them, but you know, without screaming your lungs out. And if it's necessary, I just tell them that, you know, I need to take care of my voice. So I'm sorry if you can't hear me. I can't scream right now. And other than that, you need good ear monitoring. Either your in-ear stuff or monitoring on stage, so you don't push or force yourself. And I always ask for compression and reverb and stuff like that in my in-ear monitorings, so that I can feel that I sound good.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't push and force too much.
Do you sometimes use alternate lower vocal lines to not push your voice too much to make the voice last more shows?
I haven't had that problem yet, but I would never be ashamed to do it.
No.
And I personally, I would rather hear a singer change the vocal lines sounding good than, you know, trying and failing.
Yeah.
So like my childhood hero Joey Tempest in Europe, they have lowered a lot of the songs, and you know, yeah, well, fine by me.
Yeah, I think they tune their guitars in D now or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, well, for me, it's better that way
Yeah.
than you know, sounding like Paul Stanley. Oops.
How do you play, sing 1+ hour set list one night and then prepare your voice to do it all over again the next night?
The most experience in this field I got from doing a lot of cover band gigs. You know, if you play for 3 hours and you do all the stuff in the beginning, you need to keep. You can't do la 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 la, because you know at 1:30 p.m. you need to do Highway to Hell and Living on a Prayer. So you need to plan your singing, and you know, keep it in a good mellow position, and then you know when you do this song, this note is important, then you do it with full force. You know, like the Here I Go Again, the high falsetto scream, that has to be there, because otherwise people will notice. Yeah. So I've learned to choose when to go all in and when to hold back, and I also do. I warm down a bit after shows. Also, you know, doing some wimpy dog sounds like and just to calm down.
Do you drink beer before a show?
Sometimes, but never more than one or perhaps two, to keep focus mostly. But also I tend to avoid carbonated drinks because, you know, I burp on stage. So that's the biggest disadvantage of beer. I mean, if you keep it to 1 or 2 beers, it shouldn't be a problem. But no one wants to see a drunk singer before or after the show. So no, and that's a problem with the touring and playing, because when you get into the backstage area, there's always candy and beer and chips and stuff like that. So it's tempting. But I try to avoid drinking more than 1 or 2 beers. And sometimes, especially at cover gigs and stuff like that, you have to drive, so you can't drink beer.
Yeah. How do you stay healthy on tour? You said earlier that there were a lot of beer and candy backstage. So how do you stay healthy?
Well, it's I think it's in the preparation also, you know, to, you know, keep yourself in a proper shape, you know, preparing for a tour. I mean, if you're going out to you sleep, and you sleep on different hours, and you eat when you're not supposed to eat, and you sleep bad, and you shake when you're going in the bus, and you eat candy and drink beer and stuff like that. You need to prepare for this. So I would probably say that train before a show and prepare your body for what's coming. And then also I try to it's the normal stuff. You need to wash your hands, trying to avoid germs and stuff like that, and not going out when it's cold with not enough clothes on. So it's more or less it's what you should do all the time, but you need to be more careful about stuff.
What kind of food do you think would be bad for a singer on tour?
I think it's individual stuff, but anything that causes heartburn or reflux or whatever the English name is, chocolate, fat food, smoking, alcohol, spicy food, also dairy products like milk and cheese and stuff like produces mucus. So more or less everything that's fun or tastes good.
It's a sad life to be a rocker.
Yes, but I mean, if you're in for doing this for a long time, then you need to think long term.
Yeah. Have you ever suffered the damage to your vocal cords, and how did you recover?
Well, not to the vocal folds or the vocal cords, but I had during a tour. Before the tour, I had a really, really, really bad cold, but it got better. And my voice was back and all like that. But I felt I was a bit pushy. I had to push a bit harder, and I also at the same time I felt like a kid with small, soft hands was trying to strangle me. So I was very nervous, and every night it was like, oh God, is this getting worse or is it getting better? The stress and the nervousness. I was always, worried all the time, which is also not a good thing. But I don't think it affected the sound very much, and I could feel that it sounded good anyway. But after the tour, I got to see many doctors and voice specialists, and they checked the vocal folds. It was all great, no damage at all. But after a while, they found that my saliva glands that sits here, that produces the saliva, they were swollen like hell. So that was the strangling feeling and the pushing that I felt. So no, so that wasn't really the vocal cords, but I mean I've been hoarse for certain shows and stuff like that, but I never had any lasting or really damaging damage.
Yeah. Who are your favorite metal vocalists active today?
I'm gonna try to avoid saying all the biggies like Bruce and Tony Kakko and stuff. So I try to do a shout out to people that I think deserve some more recognition than they have at the moment. So Andy Kralicha, one of my favorite singers, Tommy Johansson, Rob Lundgren, Adrian Cohen, Chiara Tricarico, Sahir Surgati, David Arredondo, Todd Michael Hall, Marius Danielsen, this Norwegian guy. No, I mean there are so many good singers out there, so it's very hard. I probably should have mentioned some other people too, but well, this was what came to mind. Yeah,
sounds like a perfect list to me.
Yeah.
Who are your favorite non-metal vocalists active today?
Tommy Körberg, a Swedish legend.
Yeah.
For non-Nordic people, he's the guy who sings the song Anthem in the musical Chess. He's still active and he still sounds great. And I would also like to throw in Sting, Celine Dion, and classical singer Bryn Terfel. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Probably again there are 100 more that I should or could mention, but
Interesting that you mentioned Tommy Körberg, because I
Mm.
tried to get him to sing that We Stand Together song on Legend Part 2.
that would have been amazing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I also know from earlier discussions that what's his name? Colm Wilkinson.
Yeah,
You asked him to join in too.
yeah.
He-
on the
he is
same
also-
song, actually.
Yeah, he's. I remember I think it was the 10-year anniversary Les Miserables show. I had it on old VHS, and I watched it, and I rewind, watched again,
No.
rewind, and watched it again. He's also an amazing singer.
And he can still hit extremely high notes with power.
Yeah, I saw him or some there was some off Broadway stuff where he did like his own stand-up comedy singing stuff, and he did all the Jesus Christ Superstar falsetto high scream stuff. So he is great.
Yeah, I occasionally try to sing that Tennessee waltz that he did. I found it on YouTube, and it's just crazy when he starts singing those high notes. I have no chance. What made you realize you could sing?
I think it was when I was about 16 or something like that. I had to do a short notice, like 1.5 or 2 weeks stand-in for a musical theater at school. It was Fame, and I did the lead role as Nick Piazza. And I never considered myself a singer before, but the teacher said, "Well, you have to do this." So I did it, and I didn't really care because there wasn't any pressure involved since I was just stand-in. But afterwards, when I saw the recording, I thought, well, this is doesn't sound awful. So then I started to realize, well, I might be good at this. But still today I could go from feeling, when I've recorded something or when I've had a gig, I feel like I am amazing, and then 5 minutes later I should be a plumber instead. So it's I don't think I have realized that I can sing yet fully. But I think that's a part of being a singer. You need to have this mix of being very eccentric and full of yourself, to be able to stand in front of a crowd and convince them that you are the God and Lord of the universe. And then at the same time, you need to have this inner struggle to push, to always get better. And when you feel like you're bad, you could go home and lie down and cry for a couple of hours, but then you need to get yourself together and get up and prove yourself. And those people that stay in bed crying, they won't get anywhere. And the people who say, okay, I suck, but I'm not going to suck anymore, I'm going to do something about it, that's people who learn stuff and experience stuff in life, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Who are your biggest influences?
Then I have to do the cheesy answer to say it's my family, who always supports me and do everything in their power to help me in whatever way I need, to keep me on the ground when I'm floating away or pushing me when I'm slowing down. And musically, it would be all the music and voice teachers that I've had all throughout the years. They've all inspired me in one way or another. I should also mention Herman Saming from the Swedish prog rock band ACT. He took me under his wings about 12 years ago when we started to do cover and troubadour gigs. And I learned really, really a lot about him or from him. And I think we've done about 100 gigs together since then. And when it comes to big singers, you know, it's the normal stuff like Bruce or Bryan Adams, Mikael Lupi, Hansi Kirsch, or Greg Graffin, or Glenn Danzig, Nils Kåre, Steven Tyler. Yeah. I could go on.
Do you play any instruments?
Yes. I started out playing the trumpet when I was a kid. When I was like 8 or 9, and then when I was about 11 or 12, I started to play the bass guitar, and at the same time starting to fool around with the piano, and and a little bit with the guitar. And then I got some training in both bass guitar, piano, and trumpet for a lot of years. And then at the Academy of Music, I got some more proper guitar lessons, but also continue with playing a lot of piano. And I kind of quit the trumpet playing. I played trumpet on one song on the new Qantice album. Oh. Tony asked, well, do you know any trumpet players? Well, it was really hard. I spent more time on doing that trumpet part than a lot of the vocal parts. But now I play piano every day at work. I'm a decent guitar player. I'm a decent bass player. I'm a sucky drummer. So, but I think that playing an instrument, any instrument, helps you with your singing, because you're not just imagining notes. You're creating them in some way, and you can never have too much training in hearing melodies and producing melodies. And I always tell my students that if you could play this melody on piano, I promise you that you can sing it better.
It has helped me a lot with singing in key when I play guitar. So
yes, and I am always very jealous of people who can both play and sing really good, because mostly guitarists are often very good singers, because they are, or instrumentalists, except bass players, because they suck. Guitarists or instrumentalists, they sing good. Like you said, they sing in key, and they are trained in hearing pitches, and they're better at keeping rhythm. So probably if I had been a good guitar player, I wouldn't have had to work so hard to be a good singer.
What instrument do you write music on? Which do you think is the most easy?
I think it depends. For me, it would be the piano, because that's the instrument that I think I handle the best.
Yeah.
But if I would be in the mood to write a pop ballad, I would be equally comfortable doing it on a guitar.
Yeah. The last question, David. Could you give us a power metal scream?
Wow!
Nice. Thank you for taking the time to join me on this journey to metal gods. You were my first guest, and you've been an amazing guest who have said a lot of interesting things.
Talked a lot.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
And thank you. It's been really interesting to answer all of these questions, and to it also helps me to answer them, because it makes me sort out my thoughts. And I really like the initiative, so I'm gonna stay tuned and check out all the other interviews you're doing too.
Thank you.